In today's episode, I'm transforming a ratty old pillow into the perfect accent for our lakeside cottage. Let's get started. The fabric that I'm using to stamp on is actually an old curtain that I'm repurposing. It was the perfect color and type of fabric for the project. I'm going to be using JudiKins Lures background stamp and the sunfish stamp for the first steps. To do the actual stamping, I'm using acrylic paint, and I'm using this multi-purpose satin paint from DecoArt, which is suitable for fabric. I'm using Battleship, Woodland Green, Cactus, and Pewter. Start by adding a little bit of each of the colors to a surface that you can use to mix. I'm using a piece of foam sponge to apply the paint to the surface of the stamp. The key thing to remember is not to add too much paint or you will lose the details of the stamp itself. I'm going to use all four of the colors randomly over the surface of the stamp. I start by adding a bit to my sponge and then sort of stamping it off on that plate just to get rid of the excess, and then very lightly begin applying it over the surface. Continue with the different shades of paint until all of your lures are covered. You are going to want to do this twice. We need 2 panels with the lures. Once you've got your paint applied, flip the stamp over and place it onto the fabric and apply a good amount of pressure to transfer that image to the fabric. Very carefully lift the stamp from the fabric to reveal the stamped image. You'll have a variation of colors and shades from the different colors of paint that you used. I used the exact same colors of paint and the same technique to apply the paint to the sunfish stamp. I began by creating a row along the top about as wide as I thought I would need to create 2 panels for the pillow. And then I alternately stamped the next line and then continued on. Once the paint was dry, I cut out around the lure background images, and then I used that as a template to cut 2 panels the same size from the sunfish. I was not worried about getting exactly straight edges where I cut because I want to go back and sort of fray and frazzle the edges of all 4 of those panels to give them a more casual, almost organic feel. To do that, you just carefully start pulling and removing threads until you've got a little bit of an edge all the way around each panel that's been unraveled. Once those panels were ready to go, I cut some burlap backing pieces for each one. I wanted them to be a little larger than the paint stamped images, but I also wanted to leave enough room where I could pull out some threads and give an unraveled edge to the burlap also. To mount those stamped panels to the burlap backing pieces, I'm using mixed media glue, which is perfect for fabric. Now, the filling for the pillow is going to be this totally beat up, stained, even torn old pillow that I had stashed in my craft supplies to give new life someday. So this is its chance. I measured the pillow and then cut my backing fabric and my front fabric for the pillow. In this case, my pillow is 16 by 16. I'm using burlap for the back. I absolutely love the earthy and organic feel that burlap gives, and I'm using some leftover green fabric that I had from when I made the curtains in the room that this pillow is going to be in. I placed the green fabric with the right side against the burlap, and then I did use a sewing machine to stitch these together. I went about 1/4 of an inch on 3 sides. Leave the bottom open so that you can insert the pillow. Turn it inside out, or right side too, and be sure to get your corners poked out as far as you can get them also. I determined where on the front of the pillow I wanted the panels to be, and then once I had them to my liking, I used that same mixed media glue to mount them to the front of the pillow. I wanted to make a coordinating decorative button for the center of the pillow, and to do that I'm using some polymer clay. I used gray and a little touch of green that I blended together and left a little bit marble just for a little added interest. And then I've rolled it out into a sheet. I'm using JudiKins fishing plug stamp for this button. It'll make a great focal element for this fishing themed pillow. You need to use a permanent ink pad for this. I chose black ink and then carefully stamped it onto that clay sheet. Now you could use an oval cutter or round cutter or whatever you'd like to cut out your image. I wanted it to be less perfect, more organic, so I'm using a blade to cut a somewhat oval shape around the fishing plug. I used my fingers to smooth those edges where it's been cut, and then sort of push and dent and again give it an irregular outer edge. Since I'm making a button, I need to make some holes for our thread, and determine on your stamped image where you want your buttonholes to be so that they don't interfere with the image. And then I'm making 2 above the fishing plug and 2 below the fishing plug. Then you want to bake it according to the manufacturer's instructions for the clay that you use, and let it cool. While my clay button was being baked, I went ahead and added a little more detail to my stamped images. And what I'm doing is using embroidery floss. I'm using a full piece, it's 6 different strands, and I'm just doing a chain stitch. I did it around the outer edges, about 1/4 inch, give or take, all the way around. Now that our fishing lure button is cooled off after baking, I wanted to kind of age it a bit, and I'm using some brown cream wax to do that. Just apply it to the surface and then use the paper towel to rub most of it off, and it sort of antiques it a bit. I'm using the same embroidery floss to mount that button to the center of the pillow. Then it was time to take that ugly old pillow and cover it and give it its new life. Lastly, I came along that bottom edge and folded them together inward to make a clean seam, and just stitched all the way along the bottom to seal up the pillow. Here's a little bit closer look at the details of the finished pillow.
We hope you're enjoying our Renovation Nation series, sponsored by JudiKins. Please follow us on social media. Sign up on our website and you'll be eligible to win a prize package full of products from some of our favorite sponsors. And remember, as we always say, when creativity knocks, open the door.